What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about our people who moved to Canada happy. Here in America, it oftentimes when things start to go downhill, you start hearing more and more Americans say, "That's it, I'm moving to Canada." And I think it's because Canada is seen as similar to us, it's seen as very close by, and most importantly, it is seen as less insane. So today I thought it'd be quite fun and honestly very interesting to hear from people around the world who have made the move to Canada and have lived there and hear from them what they think. Are they happier? Are they sadder? Are they happy with their decision to move to Canada? And we're gonna do that by looking at this Reddit discussion that I found where somebody asked folks who have moved to Canada from other countries in the last 1 to 5 years, do you regret your move? Why or why not? Are they happy with moving to Canada? And this is actually people from around the world, including Americans, which is really, really, really interesting. Let it out, no judgment here. Well, I'm Goel. I'm gonna be judging here today. Sorry. Let's take a little look at the first comment here. I moved from India, where I worked in the U.S. shift, 2:30 to 11. God, which never ended at 11. It was extremely high pressure. Luckily, I got the chance to move to Canada last year in October. I have a 9 to 5 tech job in Toronto where I can shut my laptop sharp at 5, so it's already different. This person's from India, and they think it's a luxury to the fact that your work actually ends on time. Life has improved tremendously. People really underestimate having a normal and boring 9 to 5 job. That's true. That is very, when you, that is something that you can certainly take for granted. Like, there are many parts of the world where like there's people who'd be dying to just have a normal 9 to 5 that is like even in a factory or something, something a lot of people would be like, oh, that's so boring, like, but it's honestly really necessary work. And like the fact that it's stable and you know your hours and you have a normal pay and it's reliable, that's a huge luxury for a lot of people. And so I'm not shocked to hear that this person moving from India to Canada is like, it's simple things like that are making my life a lot better. I love it here. Sure, everything is expensive now, but my life has become so much better in Canada. This one doesn't really relate too much to the United States because, like, as far as jobs go and pay and, like, stability, it's probably roughly the same, although I'm sure there's Americans who would, like, maybe have moved to Canada that would say, like, even the job experience is better. Definitely in terms of like benefits and time off. Like that's not what this person was talking about, but now I'm thinking that is a huge, huge, huge perk of moving and working in Canada. There's like actual like maternity leave. That's not like 2 or 3 months, if I remember, and like vacation is actually like required and not up to the discretion of your employer and just crazy stuff like that. Okay, thank you, Canada, for letting me come into this beautiful country as a permanent resident. I will try to integrate to this lovely land and help contribute to this country as much as I can. How poetic. Very nice. Very, very nice. Wow. Okay. So far, and I feel like this is gonna be the trend. We'll see. I feel like most of the people commenting here are gonna have positive reviews. Like as if Canada is an Amazon product. We are looking at the reviews. I'm expecting a lot of 5-star reviews, to be perfectly honest. And it'll be interesting if anyone is like, "Hey, I moved to Canada and I'm having a terrible time." But that's part of the sort of the interesting thing of reading real world experiences. Speaking of which, here's the second one. No, I know Canada has their particular problems, but I have arrived to an open community that makes me feel embraced. So the question is, do you regret moving to Canada? And they're saying, no, I don't regret it. I feel embraced, a society that is informed, a society that no matter where you come from, if you are here to lend a hand, you are welcome. And that is a great way of putting it. Absolutely. I think that's the attitude you should have anywhere in the world. If people are trying to immigrate to your country, if they're there to add value, to lend a hand, extend goodwill, what more can you ask for? That's a wonderful, wonderful thing. So I actually really like that attitude. If you're here to lend a hand, you're welcome. I have found amazing people in volunteer activities in my professional setting. Community of passionate, a community passionate about solving complex challenges. I do hope I'm doing my fair share of civic duty. I am happy to be part of the Society of Canada. Oh my God, these are very passionate as well, because these are real people who are like, life is so much better, and they seem to really appreciate it. It's actually interesting in a different way, hearing from people. Well, where was this person from? Oh, they didn't really say. No, they didn't say. I can't tell if they're American or not, but it was interesting hearing the first comment from someone in a different part of the world than America, honestly. That's eye-opening. I like this about community. I think that's a big difference to American culture. The sense of community and helping each other has definitely been lost a bit. I mean, in America, we have a different attitude about that, to be honest. We're taught to look out for yourself. Make sure you get ahead. You be first place. You gotta hustle. Do whatever it takes to win. In Canada, seems to be more community centered, more like let's help raise each other up together, which is, beautiful, honestly. Like, honestly. All right, let's keep going. Does it count if I'm Canadian and I moved home from the United States? This is a Canadian. This is a Canadian who moved to the US and then they moved back to Canada and they were like, oh my God, so good to move to Canada. It's not just the Americans who are like, you know what, I'm moving to Canada. Life is so going in the tank here. It's Canadians too. Wow, in the US. I find the winters hard after 10 years in California, but stuff is getting rough in the United States, and I feel happier and more safe. Safe, that's an interesting word as well. Safer. And depending on where you live in the United States, I don't blame that either, at all. I mean, I know the crime statistics are worse in the United States, especially depending on where you live in the United States. Crime can be really disturbing. I know a lot of people outside the US and in the US are uncomfortable with our gun laws and stuff like that. This Canadian's just like, man, the winters are rough in Canada, but whatever. I'll still go back. Wow. I also spent time in the US, and I hightailed it back home to Canada. I lived in the Bible Belt. When I got pregnant, I feared having to send my kid to school, worrying about if she would come home alive. Yeah, I hear that one a lot, actually, because I think unfortunately, the mass shooting events in the United States that are, I'm not going to say they're common, but they're disturbingly not uncommon, you know? This again depends on where you live in the United States, but I like to think there's a lot of places in the US where you genuinely don't need to worry about your child coming home alive. That's quite extreme. But at the same time, I gotta keep a unbiased, open mind here and be like, compared to other parts of the world, like the United States has had these gun violence events happen. So I can't say that that's unreasonable. That's not completely unreasonable to be worried. I love Canada, being Canadian, and raising a child here. Winter is winter is rough, but not as rough as the States. Oh, that's just going to be the tagline, the mantra, the motto for today. Winter's rough in Canada, but not as rough as America, as life in America. This is very interesting. It's very interesting. I mean, those two comments happened to be like, oh, Canadians moved to America, and here are some reasons why they didn't like it, and then they moved back to Canada. That's not exactly the stories I was expecting in this discussion, but interesting and eye-opening nonetheless. I moved here 5 years ago and I loved it. Canada. The first country I've lived in where everyone said, "Welcome to Canada," instead of, "So where are you originally from?" That would be a very American thing. Because Americans don't get exposed much to cultures outside of America. I never even thought about this, but that's a real American thing to be like, hear someone talk and be like, "Where are you from? What? Where are you? Where? What is that accent?" And it can come across as rude, even though I think Americans don't mean it. Sometimes Americans are trying to be rude, don't get me wrong, but I think many are just curious. But in Canada, it's a it's an attitude of like, welcome here. And then maybe once you get to know each other, like, "Oh, so where are you from?" I chose Canada as my home, my adopted country, the place I'll put down roots. I love it here, and I'm so happy to be Canadian. No regrets. I mean, I gotta say, so far, it's kind of what I thought. Every comment is like they love it. No regrets about moving to Canada. No regrets. Tell the Americans, let them know. They'll be coming in swarms. I'll be proud to call you a neighbor. Oh, deleted comments. We'll never know. We'll never know what they said. Do I regret moving to Canada? No. I got to get away from America. Oh my God. Okay, is this an American? Like every comment here is like, this is not necessarily an American discussion, but every comment is like, "Well, I got away from America, thank goodness, and I'm living happy in Canada." Can't say I'm shocked. I got to get away from America, and eventually I became a Canadian citizen. I have an okay job, and I've made several friends. At the same time, I've seen my home state of Florida completely fall apart from far away. Very sad. I mean, it's a happy story in a way, but as like an American who lives in America, it's sad to see someone be like, "I'm glad I moved out of that country, and I am now watching it deteriorate from afar." But on the topic of, are they happy with their choice to move to Canada? That's a resounding yes. It just had a lot of these comments just have kind of an anti-American sentiment to them, which I'm not shocked about, but it does make me a bit sad to read. I moved 6 years ago. I don't regret it because even with all the issues Canada has, I'm in a better position in every way. Right, that's good to mention as well. Like, nowhere is perfect. Perfect, right? Is Canada perfect? It's good, and in a lot of ways, doing things better than some of the stuff we're doing in America. But nothing's perfect. But that's not really the question. You're not looking for perfect. You're just looking for better and for happiness. And I think this person is saying that they found it. Financially, I'm making more money. I'm independent. Mentally, I feel I'm freer in this country. Culturally, I've tried a bunch of new things that I never tried back home. New cuisine, new sports. Right, that's kind of like a big fun part of moving cultures, huh? Kind of taking on a new way of thinking. Feeling, I mean, if you have a better job, that's great. If you feel you're more free, that's amazing. You're better mental health too, as well. As well, no one even mentioned the healthcare in Canada, which I know for a fact would help with so many Americans' mental health. That peace of mind of knowing that the healthcare is covered by your taxes to the government, and you don't have to worry about being in your insurance system or network if you're like out of town and all that madness. And this part, the part of like all these people getting to go to Canada, and they're like saying Canadian culture is fun. It has a lot of new food. I know Canada, in a lot of parts, is very diverse and multicultural within Canada, and it has French Canada and Quebec and all the French-speaking places and French culture. There's a lot of very interesting, novel experiences to be had in Canada. That's a huge reason that's not been mentioned really yet. All the fun, cool stuff to do and see and experience in Canada. It's not on top of like all the other stuff of it feels like a better community and a better job and better healthcare, but wow, 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 wow. Okay, and we have here, I moved from the UK. to Vancouver Island. I'm very happy with the move. I've embraced Canada and Canadians. Still marvel at the size of the country, the wildlife, the breathtaking scenery. Yeah, Vancouver Island. I've actually learned about Vancouver Island. That is a fantastic choice, if I say so myself. I have seen the pictures. Yeah, it's almost like there's beaches and stuff. There's beaches in Canada. No one knows that. just the Canadians on Vancouver Island, keeping secrets. I love Canadians' can-do attitude. I could go on. Oh man. We've applied for citizenship for their son. It's a diverse country. Welcoming. Okay. I've seen enough. I've seen enough. I think that's good for this discussion. That's a lot of different opinions from a lot of different people from around the world. I know there's more comments, and maybe eventually we'd find some kind of criticism, but not from what I saw. That was just a bunch of people from a lot of places who have moved to Canada, and they have no regrets at all, which is pretty amazing. Like, it's not a huge sample size, but it says something. Seriously. It's kind of what I expected, but it was actually pretty heartwarming to read how passionate a lot of these comments were about how welcomed they felt and the opportunities they felt they were having in Canada. And yeah, that was very, very interesting, actually. I enjoyed this quite a bit. Anyway, if you enjoyed this as well, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment, perhaps with your thoughts on whether or not you think people who move to Canada are happier or have good experiences or anything that has to do with this discussion. That'd be fascinating to hear about. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Canada and Canadian culture, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching and see you next time.